About a month ago, I had to create a project on the Industrial Revolution for my honors world history class. And I decided, of course, to do a video on the growth of the assembly line. Now, I needed to ensure that my grades stayed up in the class, so during that winter break, I spent 2 whole days crafting this video. I later submitted it, and my teacher gave me a resounding 100%. She said it was the best video that she reviewed in all of her classes. And so because of that, I thought you guys should be able to watch it too. So without further ado, here's my video on the growth of the assembly line. Okay, and there. December 1st, 1913 is the date that Henry Ford invented the working assembly line. I mean, it's common knowledge at this point. Yo, Siri! Who invented the assembly line?
Henry Ford is generally considered to be the inventor of the assembly line.
Now, only half of that statement is true. Yes, Henry Ford's assembly line was unique. It specialized in the production of motor vehicles and utilized a moving conveyor belt. But many of the core principles of the assembly line were definitely not his ideas. They actually originated in the 1700s right here, in the land where the locals say biscuits, pubs, schedule, loos, and lorries, otherwise known as Britain. So hold on, if I've been fed a half-truth all this time, then how did the assembly line take off? What impacts did it have on society? How did it develop? Well, I'd advise you grab your microwave popcorn, wait for it to microwave, and come along with me to explore the growth of the assembly line. Take a look at this image. How many people do you see in it? I'd be really disappointed if you got it wrong. It's one. One person was instructed to manufacture a product in her home, which is known as the domestic system. Now, imagine this following scenario taking place in the present day. Imagine you're in your bedroom and you're obligated to assemble the next iPhone. Even if you're experienced in that field, it'll take you weeks to assemble that product. With that pace, you would never be able to effectively sell your products in the marketplace because as soon as you have 2 customers, you're already short on supply. Therefore, there needed to be a change. Bam! Enter the factory system. This system started being used in factories during the second half of the 18th century during Britain's Industrial Revolution, and it had a key benefit over the domestic system. The benefit is that many different people worked on manufacturing one product. More specifically, division of labor was utilized, which is what makes the assembly line the assembly line. Each person working on manufacturing had 1 or 2 tasks to complete, and they would complete that task repeatedly, over and over and over again. And they didn't have to wait for someone else to finish their task, they could just keep on doing their work continuously. Each person could also be a master in their respective task because of repetition. This was a big step in allowing for efficient mass production. So at this point, the core assembly line is in full swing throughout many different factories, and the assembly line, along with those factories, brought wild changes to society during Britain's Industrial Revolution. First, social classes. Alongside the middle class who lived in spacious homes and had a good supply of water, there was also the working class. And they lived in awful conditions. They lived in packed tenements with no running water and no sewage system. During the day, when people in the working class were out of the house and, working, they worked in factories with assembly lines, doing one task. Now remember how I said that one could just keep on repeating the same task continuously? Well, that can go overboard sometimes, and this is one of those examples. These people work 10 to 12 hours with little to no breaks doing the same task over and over and over again. And as if it couldn't get any worse, this extends to, this one's a real doozy, child labor. This is seriously sickening, so buckle up. From an extremely young age, I'm talking around 5 years old here, children started working with the assembly line. Okay, so they obviously worked less hours than the adults. Nope, same 10 to 12 hours. Okay, well of course they just did simple tasks using simple equipment because they're only little children, right? That's cute. No. Children were often given no mercy, working with dangerous and complicated equipment. Okay, so of course the equipment would have many safety precautions so that the little kids don't Lose an arm? Hate to break it to you, but it's exactly the opposite. Yeah, sorry, run that back again? It's true, during Britain's Industrial Revolution, there weren't any laws restricting child labor. And so, because of the absence of these laws, factory owners decided to take the cheap way out. It was less expensive to skip safety precautions for the dangerous machines that children were working with. And the factory owners made children work the same long hours as adults because they thought, who cares? Mo hours, mo product, mo money. Okay, enough with that. Let's lighten the mood with a less problematic topic, new inventions. The assembly line gave way to build revolutionary new inventions that changed the way we live today. Some of these inventions included the steam engine for locomotives and ships, the spinning jenny for textile production, and the power loom. And the final topic, the assembly line is a prime example of ideas of industrialization spreading across the globe. Remember the intro with Henry Ford? Henry Ford was an American living in the 19th and 20th century, and that's 3,500 miles away from Britain. Moving on past the Industrial Revolution, what happened in the 1800s with the assembly line? Actually, not much. The assembly line just wasn't a huge focus during this century, but there was one big thing: interchangeable parts. Interchangeable parts made it quick and easy for unskilled people to assemble a product, which opened the opportunity for more people to work on producing goods, and it decreased the time it took to make an item. This was especially useful when producing products like guns, shown evidently by... I have no clue how to pronounce that. I'm gonna need some help.
Honoré Leblanc.
Yeah, that. What she said. He proposed that all guns should be made in the same or similar manner, so that need there be a repair, it would be simpler to repair the gun. And now we get to the 1900s. What happened in the early 1900s again? The intro to this video? Yep, Henry Ford invented the working assembly line. Again, his assembly line was unique in its own way. It specialized in automobiles, used a conveyor belt, and he also brought a 5-day work week to his employees, increasing their satisfaction. And the 5-day work week is now common in our current society. Now, speaking of satisfaction, the employees no longer had to work extremely long hours, they were given better conditions with more safety precautions, and children were not allowed to work in the factory. Yeah, how it should have been in Britain a century and a half prior. The specific assembly line method stayed the same for another 50 years, until something new, something revolutionary, was added into the mix. Robots. In 1961, the Unimate robot was placed in the assembly line of a General Motors plant in New Jersey. It replaced a human for the job of cleaning out the finished castings from a die-cast press. And these robots got much crazier over time. Just recently, Amazon showed off their Hercules robots in action at their fulfillment centers. These tiny little things can lift up to a whopping 1,250 pounds and can travel across the fulfillment center's 1 million square feet. It also has a 3D camera so it can identify people, other robots, and other things blocking its way. This is a big step up from the Unimate robot that emerged 60 years prior. And who knows what's going to happen with the assembly line in the future. Robots could get so advanced that they can replace every human job present in the assembly line. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. This was the growth of the assembly line. Thanks so much for watching, and I'm gonna go to sleep now. Good night. I don't have an assembly line of my own. Someone could have created my script. Someone could have edited my video. But nope, it's just me, myself, and I, exactly the way I wanted it to be. Now go my popcorn.